Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I hope you guys are having a magnificent Wednesday. We're kicking butt this Wednesday. We're continuing to hit those goals. We're sprinkling a little bit of that on you. And we're going to be coming at you with a surprise today because we might be in for a global reset. And this could change the whole way that we do things. So let's go ahead and get into it. So what exactly do I mean when I say global reset? So what I mean by global reset is we could be in for a drastic change when it comes to the way that our currency works. And right now, we've been long overdue for this because the world is based on a fiat type currency. Fiat currency being paper currency. So if you go to Canada, they have their own currency. Obviously, here in the United States, we have the US dollar. If you go overseas, it's the euro. If you go to Japan, it's the yen. So each specific country has their own set currency. Currencies have different values. And here's what I mean by that. If you look at the US dollar, it is valued a lot more significantly than that of, let's say, the yen or the euro or even the Vietnamese dong or the Iraqi dinar. And so one of our dollars equates to a significant amount of their money. Therefore, our US fiat currency is a lot more valuable than the currencies of other countries. And because of that, you can take the US dollar, go anywhere you want in the world, and pretty much buy whatever you want because the US dollar is looked at as the king of currencies. Now, it's great that the United States dollar is the highest valued currency throughout the whole globe, right? Well, here's the issue with that. Currently, if you look at the U.S. debt, right now we are over $26 trillion in debt. And why is that significant? That's significant because every single time our Federal Reserve prints off more money, like they did for our most recent stimulus package, unfortunately, what it's ultimately doing is devaluing the dollar. That means that our dollar isn't looked at as heavily as it used to be because there's a lot more money in circulation. So when these ideas of printing off more money come to be to help the economy, it's actually hurting our US dollar from a value base because essentially it's bringing and driving the value of the dollar down more because there's more of these dollar bills in circulation. So when you look at that, and then you also look at the fact that a lot of these other countries' dollar fiat currencies are not as valuable as ours, we really are playing an unfair game. A game where unfortunately a lot of countries can't get ahead because they don't have the value back of their dollar. And the example I'll give you is Zimbabwe currency. You could buy hundreds of millions of Zimbabwe currency for pennies on the dollar here in the United States because it simply doesn't have the value. So what that means is that these countries who want to play catch up with the United States, unfortunately, are at a disadvantage because the value of their currency and what it takes for them to buy what it takes for us to buy is far off a level playing field. And so we have to do a lot less work to attain goods and services and get companies to come to our country because our dollar value is so much higher and the value that our dollar brings is a lot greater than any other country. Therefore, the playing field is far off. Now, if you mix that with the fact that digital currency is an idea that's really gaining steam, you'll start to see why this idea of fiat-based currency really can't stay consistent for too much longer. And here's the example I'll give you. Obviously, this talk of a Bitcoin-based currency or a blockchain type currency has really been gaining a lot of steam over the past 5 to 10 years. And a lot more companies are jumping on board with this idea of creating their own digital currency. And when you think about it, this starts to make a lot of sense. And here's the reason why I say that. Right now, people don't use the US dollar too much anymore. When they're paying for things, they're paying for it with a credit card, a debit card, or with the advent of Apple Pay, it's very simple for somebody to cash out and basically put their phone up to a transaction system where automatically they are getting deductions from their checking or savings account, whatever they're using, based on a simple tap of the phone. And so the idea of a fiat currency making sense is really starting to go by the wayside, because unfortunately people like the idea of just doing a tap of the phone to pay for things, or people like the idea of swiping a credit card with a chip in it or a debit card with a chip in it. Therefore, the idea of printing off more dollars really isn't making much sense anymore. So when you mix that with the idea of the fact that our US dollar is losing steam per day because we're going into more and more and more and more debt as each second passes, this whole idea of a global reset starts to make sense. And here's the reason why I say that. If countries don't have to print off dollar bills anymore, first and foremost, they're not having to use materials. Therefore, they're not having to worry about spending extra money to potentially put more currency in circulation. It would just be as simple as them adding more funds to their digital chains or whatever form of currency they choose to use via this idea of a digital currency. Also, if we can put every single country on the same playing field when it comes to monetary value, so let's say that the whole planet is using the exact same digital currency, what that does is that evens the playing field. Now, by evening the playing field, here's what that does. Countries that didn't stand a chance before, the Ethiopias, the Zimbabwe's, the Iraqs, the Vietnams, these countries who have been struggling to keep up with countries like the United States, like China, like all of these other good producing countries, now what starts to happen is every country has the same opportunity as the others. Now, by doing that and leveling the playing field, if you will, what that essentially does is that drives the idea of businesses going to whatever country they want to, therefore creating equal opportunities for whatever country they may plant their flag in. On top of that, what it's also going to do is it's going to create new ideas in goods and services. And the reason why is because these countries that have been held back because they don't have the financial backing now do have the financial backing. Therefore, new ideas come into circulation, new inventions go into circulation. The way we do things throughout this planet starts to change and it starts to evolve, and we start to work together because every single country is on the same playing field. Now, also, if we do choose to go to a global reset and go completely digital with the entire planet following suit and following the same exact currency model, that would also mean that these debts that all of these countries have racked up, not only the United States, but other countries, would have to wipe that debt out completely and start over. And the reason why I say that is because you can't possibly owe a country a debt if that currency no longer exists. And here's the idea that I mean by that is if the United States owes China $800 million or $800 billion, we'll say, and we owe it to them in US dollars, but the US dollar no longer exists, that means that that debt also no longer exists. So we would also have to wipe the whole idea of debt out completely. Now, why is that a good thing? That's a good thing because not only will countries have to wipe their debt out, but also individuals will have to wipe their debt out as well. So if people have hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loan debt or credit card debt or any sort of other debt, and that currency is no longer a legal tender, right? Well, there's going to be a whole reevaluation that needs to happen. Well, how much does digital mean as compared to the US dollar? Well, if all countries are evenly the same, that means that that dollar value via digital is going to be completely different than what it would have been from a fiat currency standpoint. So it would make a lot more sense for countries to go, you know what, we're not going to convert this from a fiat to a digital. We're just going to start over, because the conversion, when factoring in every single country with their dollar value and also how much debt they're in currently, would be so much work that it just doesn't make sense, and we're going to have to start over regardless. So not only are countries going to get a fresh start when it comes to these debt ideas, but individuals are going to have their own debt relief plan as well. Therefore, even the playing field for individuals, where we no longer have a wealthy group of people, everybody starting on the same plane, where we all have to start with our own value system, and we have to do whatever it is that we do to start earning this new digital currency and start creating wealth whatever way we choose to. Therefore, we're going to start seeing new demographics pop up. We're going to start seeing people become wealthy that otherwise wouldn't have had a chance to become wealthy with our fiat currency and the debt that they racked up with that fiat currency. So when you start to factor in all of these different changes between people no longer using a fiat currency, with banks wanting to look more into a digital currency, and then also the impact of what it would take for the whole planet to go on a one world currency, this would be a beautiful thing. And it would create a lot more opportunities, not only for individuals, but it would create opportunities for countries to be on a level playing field. And it would also spur this idea of countries working together, because now they're not looked at differently, because every country has the exact same amount of wealth. And so I think this idea of a global reset in regards to currency is something that's really starting to gain traction, and is something that could make sense for us down the road. Now, am I saying that this will happen in the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years? That's not what I'm saying at all. But could we see this change happen eventually? Absolutely we can, because this whole idea of a fiat currency making sense no longer is making sense, because as countries print more and more of this paper currency, not only are they using resources to do it, but they're seriously devaluing their dollar. Therefore, the value of the dollar ultimately goes down, and countries start to go more and more and more in debt. And obviously, if you go more and more and more in debt, you're not able to pay that debt back. Therefore, you keep racking up a bill that ultimately is never going to get paid, and we're exchanging basically goods and services for nothing anymore. So this idea of a digital currency or a new form of currency is something that, when you start to think about it, makes plenty of sense. Tell me what you guys think. Do you think this idea of a global reset in regards to currency actually makes sense? Do you think that it would be beneficial for us to blow down the whole idea of a fiat currency and start over with a new digital one world currency? Do you think that would make sense, and do you think it would level the playing field? So let me know what you think in the comments section below, because this is something that when I first thought about it a few years ago, when Bitcoin was starting to really gain traction, I didn't think it would ever make sense. But the more that we're printing off this currency, the more I'm starting to realize that something needs to be done in regards to the value of each country's dollar, but also in regards to how we can actually get out of debt, not only as a country, but as a people as well. So let me know what you guys think. And then also give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed this content. If you haven't subscribed at this point, I'm still really questioning why you tune into all of these videos, yet you aren't subscribed, because we talk about stuff like this all the time, from building wealth to becoming successful to this idea of having, being, and doing whatever you want on this planet. So if you haven't subscribed, hit it. It's right there. It's glorious. It's looking at you dead in the face, waiting for you to just click it. Other than that, I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your Wednesday, and you take care. Peace.